Anthony, thanks so much for joining us here today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Let's dig right in. Well, first off, I always start off with a question for those that maybe haven't heard of the AI Fund. What is the AI Fund? How did you get involved in the first place? And then, feel free to work in your background in there, kind of leading up to it.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I could take a step back and say, I know everyone's talking about AI and there's a bunch of excitement. I've actually gotten involved in AI from my last startup that happened around 10 years ago. And so I've been involved in this space and, frankly, when I was decided to leave Walmart, where I operated for about 6 years, I connected with the folks at AI Fund, which is a venture studio backed by Sequoia, Greylock, NEA, and SoftBank. It was founded by Andrew Ng, who's one of the thought leaders in the AI space from his time at Google, as well as his time at Baidu. And he's currently on Amazon's board. So I thought really was excited about the team, what they were trying to do at the AI Fund, which was build the next stage of AI-enabled businesses. And so I got involved. I'm currently, besides the AI Fund, I'm also a board member at a growth stage enterprise software company and Civio.ai, which is a company that was incubated actually out of the AI Fund, going after the problem of how to sell to government more efficiently. And previous to that, besides that, I led digital transformations at Walmart, CBS, and was a serial entrepreneur prior to that.
I love it. It's how have those experiences helped shape your approach to investing and helping create these companies with the AI Fund?
Well, what I would say is that the biggest thing is any entrepreneur, as you're trying to build a business, is you're trying to find product market fit. And sometimes you can see the problem in front of you, but you don't really understand the ramifications, because eventually every startup, their goal is to be really big. I think I've been fortunate enough to be able to flex from 0 to 1 early stage, as well as run multi-billion-dollar businesses. And so when you run businesses at large, you always can start almost with the answer of this is what the thing can look like, and then work backwards. And so I think, my job at AI Fund, while I'm not the builder, I do advise and work with the CEOs of venture partner to make sure that they're building the product so that eventually when it gets to scale, what that product can look like, as well as kind of thinking when they're selling large enterprises, there's a little bit of loss in translation in terms of what the company's saying and deciphering what the entrepreneur hears. And I feel like I can be a good bridge between the two and help them connect the dots.
Now, you've had multiple companies that are now a part of the AI Fund. I don't want you to play any favorites here, right? And I know you wouldn't do that, but like if you just had to kind of spotlight a few for our audience here today, what are a few that we could kind of talk a little bit more about?
Well, I think a few of them are really early stage, but what I can tell you is the space, and when you think about where the AI fund is investing, it's across many different layers, especially at the application level. But the areas I'm really excited about are what are industries that previously people that did not get as involved in, but we see huge opportunities. So the company I think called Civio.ai is a company that I would say that I believe has a chance to really change how governments interact with businesses, as well as with the communities that they serve. And AI is going to be a big part of that, because there's just a lot of inefficiencies in terms of that interaction model. There's things like global supply chain and global transportation. I think that those areas are also areas that AI can be enabled. It's really all the stuff where there was a lot of data that was generated, but difficult to make sense or leverage in the past. And there are a lot of stuff that previously maybe were considered impossible that are now made possible because of where AI is today.
What areas are you starting to see where you're like, okay, we're kind of overdoing it with the amount of AI solutions in this particular area? It's getting a little bit too crowded. Are there any particular spaces where you're seeing just an abundance of companies kind of doing something similar?
Well, I think that obviously there's too many chatbots. I've seen a lot of there's a lot of AI language models. Can eventually, I think that they're going to converge where there's going to be a few of the big ones, and then maybe simultaneously some vertical LLMs for different verticals. I do believe that besides that, when you look at it, there's everyone, it feels like, and their mother are working on AI-enabled dating sites. And I think that there's a proliferation of that's building up, and we'll kind of see where that ends up. But I think a lot of these businesses tend to have network effects where, the winners start gravitating, and then you start developing niches within it. But I think that those are probably areas where I've seen easy stuff that's been that people can see on a daily basis are the ones that are a little bit maybe oversaturated, but it's too early to say.
What areas are you really taking a look at that maybe you haven't started, like either investing or building these companies within, that you think show a lot of promise right now?
Well, I would say there's probably this next generation of Enterprise 3.0, because there's a lot of businesses that traditionally, when they've approached their problems, they've looked at their existing workflows, and then what they've done is traditionally in software they've put technology over how human beings interact, if you know what I mean. And if you were to start something from scratch, it's actually a pretty inefficient model. What you really want to look at is the whole end-to-end workflow, and thinking what is possible now if you actually had technology that could take over big parts of these end-to-end value chain, value streams. And those are the areas that excite me. I see opportunities in all different areas, from insurance to transportation to supply chain to autonomous driving even, and as well as I think the area that has not been talked about but will be big is just the idea of remapping how work gets done and being able to translate and leverage the data that frankly has not been documented. There's a lot of workflows that happens inside the enterprise that has not been kind of captured through technology or how we imagine it. As an example, you have groups that I know in the retail space that do a lot of buying, and the way they do buying and the way they negotiate, a lot of that's actually not written down, and you really need to be able to get that stuff kind of documented and the reasoning thought through so that the machines can understand what's kind of happening, because most of it just kind of resides in people's minds. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities for areas like that, and then ensuring that you're kind of capturing the implicit knowledge that's happening. That's a lot of it's undocumented, as I pointed out again.
So, if those areas that are undocumented, what is your advice to whether it's founders or leaders in the space on how to go about actually having those conversations? Because some people will say writing out step by step what they do is not their specialty, right? Do you recommend that they start maybe recording or having conversations? Like, what are some paths that you think they should be taking in order to get down these steps? Because without the steps, it's not going to be successful in truly automating, right?
Yeah, I would say, what's kind of interesting if you take a step back is the three ingredients that you need to make AI work is compute, which is a processor, algorithms, and then the last piece is the data. I would say outside of the tech companies that we hear about, they typically dominate the first two. But majority of companies, I would say in the S&P 500 or the S&P 1000 or most traditional companies, the biggest advantage is the data that they have. To give you a sense of some flavor of size, I think when ChatGPT 4.0 was trained, I think they accessed was trained on a little less than 1 petabyte of data. I'm told JP Morgan's internal data set is about 15 petabytes. So that gives you some sense of the potential what's hidden in there. Now, a lot of this are companies for privacy reasons, security reasons, also competitive advantage reasons, stuff that organizations are not going to document and put out. But I think that for organizations, they need to start at the board level, at the CEO or their executive team level, having like conversations about what are areas that they do want to start capturing the reasonings of how they're doing the work so that they can use it for a competitive advantage. And I think that the possibilities there are limitless once we get to the point that you start documenting this stuff.
One of the things that you and I were chatting a little bit about, Anthony, before we started recording was, there's a lot of talk about all these different AI solutions, but what I would love to hear from you is like, where is success happening in AI? And you referenced in our conversation, Amazon. Would love to give you a moment to kind of talk about where success is happening in AI, some actual use cases and benefits that we now have results on.
Yeah, maybe let's take a step back and say when people talk about AI, I think that there's a lot of folks that are still thinking about AI like from the Terminator movies, that they're going to take over the world in the short term. I can assure people, I think in the short term, it's not happening. We're going to have autonomous vehicles that do good for the world, like Waymo. I'm actually a big fan of that. But what I believe will happen is AI is going to make people's lives and our work actually more interesting. And some examples that we're seeing right now include when there was a recent post from Andy Jassy, CEO from Amazon, which I found amazing, which is that he was talking about the Amazon Q product, which is their version of a chatbot that they're using. Typically in the past, what they had is their software developers would spend anywhere from 50 developer days to update their software. These are very tedious tasks in terms of upgrade, and it's not like adding new features. They've been able to reduce 50 developer days to a few hours. And what they believe as they kind of map this out is when they're using these tools, they're saving somewhere in the ballpark around 4,500 developer years of work that's been dedicated in the past just towards tedious work like software updates and maintenance. So you can imagine if you can take their current team that was meant to do that, and you take that channel and channel their energies towards developing more features. I think that what you're going to find is an unleashment, hopefully, of a lot more features that's going to come out of stuff that customers have been waiting for. I think that in the other thing they found, I think in his post I found interesting, is that in 6 months they found over 50% of their Java systems were upgraded and 79% of the codes required no changes, which translated in their mind to generating about $260 million in annual efficiency gains. Now, I have not seen numbers like that. Obviously, Amazon is a company that has massive scale, but that's just one area, I think, and then you look through others, and JP Morgan's now training all their new hires on using prompt learning, how to do prompt engineering, which I think is going to unleash, and it'll be interesting to track what kind of things that come out from it. And then on stuff that we probably don't talk about as much because they're less about knowledge workers, but Caterpillar is starting to use AI for autonomous mining, which at the end of the day leads to a lot more safety improvements. This is a company that's been producing mining products for decades, and they're starting to use AI-powered autonomous operations. They're testing it out right now, and they're also using it for preventive maintenance because leveraging AI to know when parts are going to break or where there's going to be more danger. I think all those will probably get to a place where things are going to start getting measured. I think the key part of all those is that I think AI is going to touch every part from fruit picking all the way up to helping you do trades and probably everything in between, including game theory for negotiating contracts.
What's next for AI Fund that you want to share with us here today that really excites you? I know you have a couple projects too that are still in stealth mode, right? Maybe you could share though without naming obviously those companies, kind of some of the areas that they're focusing in on.
So I can't talk about a lot of the projects just because they're, as a venture studio, they are in the early stages. But what I will tell you is that AI Fund is definitely looking at really hard problems to solve. And they're looking at areas when there's hard problems to solve, can technology and specifically data sets and AI be leveraged to improve the customer experience as well as to drive more operating efficiencies and improve the way work gets done. And that what they found is that the sectors are going after include things like the entertainment industry. From it could be things like in music or movies, going all the way to transportation and supply chain, going all the way to how businesses do enterprise do businesses. What I would say is that in my mind, and I don't speak for AI Fund here, but it's just my opinion and my opinion alone, is that I believe the initial opportunities will probably be in the enterprise space. And the reason I say this is that AI will show up in a lot of consumer products, but I believe when you talk about real dollars and cents, where dollars are going to go, it's going to be inside the enterprise, and enterprise including government. So GovTech is going to be a very big area. I'm hoping and very hopeful, and one of my biggest areas I'm really optimistic about is AI can help our governments run more efficiently. Because as all of us know, what would be better than not having to go to the DMV and giving them the same information again, or them, as soon as you show up, they do the work, the work gets done. Or a lot of times you go and wait in line for 2 hours just to get a stamp on something. A lot of that stuff can be verified. So I'm excited about how that can kind of become ubiquitous inside that workflow. And then that can bleed into education, public schools, helping kids learn, and really democratizing and level the playing field, where right now there's parts of education that if you could pay for a tutor, you're going to do a lot better than your classmates. And that, starts in kindergarten, maybe preschool, going all the way up. And I think AI is an opportunity to really democratize that and level the playing field, so that it is not based on how much money your family has, but it's, you're going to provide equal access, and hopefully for everybody.
I love it. Last thing, Anthony, before we let you go, what are you looking forward to from the Human X conference?
I am looking forward to the great number of speakers as well as the attendees that are going to be going. And the mission of, I think the Human X makes so much sense. There's a reason I think that conference is led with called Human X, which is that for this to really, AI to really work in a big way to maybe permeate through society, it's going to be a partnership between humans and machines. And I'm really looking forward to having those type of conversations and discussions there. And I think I'm going to learn a lot in that process from a lot of very smart people. And overall, it's going to be fun, especially going to a conference where it's a 1.0 version, where we're going to see the rawness of these things before it gets really, post-production, when it gets to 10.0 or something like that. So I'm very excited about it and this conference. In fact, I got it marked down and counting the days.
March will be here before you know it. I mean, look, we're almost through 2024, which is crazy to think about. But I look forward to connecting with you in person there. It'll be a great event. The content looks unbelievable. And once again, Anthony, I want to thank you for joining us here on the podcast and sharing your thoughts.
Absolutely. It was great. I enjoyed it a lot. And I look forward to seeing you at Human X.